All right, Ed, you do the introduction. We're recording now.
Okay. Well, first of all, it would help the quality of the transmission if everybody would shut off their video, the little icon over near the left side, and also mute your audio. We can't emphasize that enough. We really don't want to hear you chewing on your supper, or your dog barking, or your toilet flushing. Thank you, thank you. So I try to have a mixed diet of programs the best I can. And one of the things I like to do is feature advocacy groups. Usually they're environmental groups like West Virginia Rivers Coalition, Potomac Conservancy, things like that. But there's another piece of the puzzle right there. Um, there are problems on the river. We take a lot of things for granted. We go out and enjoy dam releases and assume that's the way things were. No, somebody at some point worked for those things. The fact that there aren't more dams, somebody fought these dams. The fact that you can get onto the river, somebody may have fought for access. So we need people who do that because most of us don't have the time to do all these battles ourselves, especially if they're far from our homes. And that's where AW comes in. Kevin can really give you the history of it, but I've been supporting this group since the early 1960s when it was called American Whitewater Affiliation. At one time, they're right here in our backyard, Silver Spring, and I could just go up and bother them anytime I want. Hmm. Maybe that's why they moved away. Anyway, that's enough introduction. We were lucky enough to have Kevin Colburn here, and he is the stewardship director, if I got the title right, and the guy that really directs a lot of the great things this organization does. So I will shut up and turn it over to Kevin. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ed. I'm going to do some slides and please think about questions because hopefully I'll move fairly quickly through this and we can have some conversation around our work. I'd appreciate that. So let's see. Take a minute here to get my slides up and running. All right. Are you seeing a cheesy picture of me in a squirt boat from the 90s on the Lower Yacht? Is that
Still says loading.
Oh, okay. Let's give it a minute here. We can do this a different way if we must. But we'll give it a second. Let's see. It says my screen sharing is paused. Let's see. I don't know why that would be. Um, let's see. Still says paused, Ed?
Still
It's
says loading.
Yep.
Still says loading. Okay. Well, let me try.
Now, Google says you're supposed to uh, get Google going, and then when you go to share, there's a way of sharing a video that works better.
Let me try something else. So let's see. I'm going to stop my screen share. I saved my presentation. Oh, let's see. As a PowerPoint, that might work better. So one moment. Let's try this. Now do you see? Let's see. See if this
Yay.
works better. Did that work?
Yes.
All right, great. Let's see. I guess I'm going to play from start. And Grace Hassler's here. She can be my tech assistant if I need her. So let's see. So now can you see a cheesy picture of me squirt boating on the Lower Yacht?
Yes.
All right, great. Hi, everybody. Sorry for the tech issue there, but I am Kevin Colburn. I'm the National Stewardship Director of American Whitewater, and I've been with AW for 23 years. basically straight out of college. I've gone from being the youngest person on staff to the one with the most tenure, certainly not the oldest, but been here a while. I grew up in your neck of the woods in Pennsylvania near Gettysburg. So if you've ever heard of the Conewago Narrows, that was about 2 miles from my house. So that's kind of where I come from. But I grew up out on the Yauk and the Shenandoah and the Lehigh, and Barb Brown was actually like incredibly um, awesome at dragging me around to rivers when I was a kid with her family. So always have profound appreciation for Barb, just getting me to West Virginia for the first times and getting me out on a lot of fun whitewater, Seneca Rocks, all that kind of area. So let's see. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of AW, real brief, a little bit about kind of what we're up to now, what we think is interesting, some local projects that we're working on, and then a few trends that I see in paddle sports, and particularly in our work on river conservation and access work. And then hopefully we can chat about it. So it is our 70th anniversary. We were founded in 1954, if you don't want to do the math. And we've been publishing the journal since 1955. So it's a continuously published, volunteer-driven journal. When we started in the 50s, paddling, as many of you know, was maybe like, kind of modern paddling was like 20 years old. Maybe you'll refute that. But paddling was kind of coming into its own, just as a lot of the rivers that people were experiencing for the first times were disappearing. So it was this interesting time when people were really getting out in nature, really exploring these wild waterways, wilderness waterways, and we were watching them disappear as fast as we were finding them as a community. And that really led to the formation of American Whitewater. We were focused primarily at the time on wilderness, and there was no Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. There was no Wilderness Act, but we used the word wilderness at the time as kind of the value that we were seeking to protect. So we were fighting dams from the very first journal and from the very first day, because dams are just incredibly impactful to our community. Let's see. So over the years, our mission has evolved to really have three main components: protect, restore, and enjoy. I'm going to kind of jump around time-wise a little bit. But protect, restore, enjoy is kind of what we do. We represent the paddling community. We're a nonprofit. We're membership driven. We're an affiliation of paddling clubs. So we're really this community effort to come together to affect change for rivers. And our river protection work has mostly focused on the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. We were there in its creation in the 60s. We were there, kind of writing some of the early language for it. Our founders were very involved in the early designations in the 60s and 70s, and we remain very involved with wild and scenic rivers and other land protection and river protection efforts today. Restoration work is probably what we're known best for. We bring water back to rivers. It's really amazing. This is the Catawba River in South Carolina. It looked like this for 100 years. It'll never look like this again. It started flowing last year or the year before, I think last year, based on a 20-year project that I worked on. And we've done this on probably 100 river reaches nationwide. So pretty profound effect to just literally flip a switch one day after years of work and bring a river back to life that has never been here, hadn't been seen in 100 years in some cases. And this process of using the federal dam relicensing process to bring water back, it's sort of like our niche. We do it really well. We've been doing it for a long time. Pope Barrow, who many of you know, was kind of instrumental in kind of envisioning how this might work and making sure the laws supported our ability to do this and giving recreation kind of weight in the scale. And then the last piece of the puzzle is enjoyment. So protect, restore, enjoy. This is everything from buying access areas to defending the right to float, to working on management plans with the Park Service. Again, there's lots of environmental groups that are out trying to seek protection for river spaces. We are one of the few that will stand up and like fight really hard for the public to be able to continue to enjoy whitewater rivers and just water in general. So here we are today. This is actually last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago. This is the whole American Whitewater staff. We got together for a board meeting. There's 14 of us, and this is the biggest our organization has ever been. We've been, we were volunteer driven completely until I think the late 80s. And then we started slowly building staff. We've grown significantly. Our budget's probably 3 times or 4 times what it was when I got hired 23 years ago. Our staff is just this eclectic bunch of hilarious, smart, passionate, so quirky people. They're all so fun. We have a great time when we're together. We push each other really hard. We all work really hard, and it's what has made me want to be here for 23 years with this organization is the incredible people I get to work with, and also just my ability to affect change. We don't do it alone. We've started 3 coalitions over the past 20 years or so, or 30 years, I guess. We just started the Wild and Scenic Rivers Coalition in 2018, and that's basically all the groups working on wild and scenic. We really wanted to give wild and scenic rivers the kind of identity and like cheerleading system that the wilderness system has, and we've done it. It's really cool. We go to DC, we talk about rivers, we work on new designations. The next one is Outdoor Alliance, which is a collection of human-powered outdoor recreation groups. We helped start them 10 years ago. I'm actually going to DC tomorrow to celebrate their 10th anniversary. And so this is like the climbers and mountain bikers and backcountry skiers and surfers, all the people like paddlers that have this shared value in public spaces, public access, and wild places and water quality, things like that. And last, Hydropower Reform Coalition, they've been around for a while, like I think since the mid-90s. We co-founded them as well. And it's all the people that work on hydropower issues, really trying to be a check and balance for the hydropower industry that's much better funded than we are. Okay, so I said that we did get together with staff like a week or 2 ago. And this is a bunch of staff and board when they came to visit in North Carolina. And we kind of realized we're at this point in our organizational history where we've always kind of punched above our weight. We've always somehow pulled off amazing big things from like, the 50s on. We tend to have people that are more knowledgeable and passionate about rivers than other communities. And we have this infectious enthusiasm as a community. I mean, not just paddlers in general. And we have knowledge, we have special knowledge, we have connections. But as AW has grown and with the team we have now, we're just starting to realize like, wow, we can do big things. We should like aim higher. So I'm going to share a few things, some big, some small, mostly in your region that we're working on right now. So about 5 years ago, I got the first ever significant government grant for American Whitewater from the Coast Guard. And we started doing big safety projects every year. So far we've done a series of films, like the one you see on your left, geared towards new paddlers. We created a signage toolbox. We basically had this idea, this is pretty new, it's 2022, that river signs are all different. But when you go to a ski area or a mountain bike park or a climbing gym, all the signs are like transferable, like what a blue slope is. So we really want to bring consistency to, and just like paddler smarts to river signs instead of it being some random manager that's never been on the water that like makes the sign. So we worked on that. We're redoing the safety code right now, which is our, kind of almost day one, like formative document about how to stay safe on the river. And we're redoing that and changing it from old graphics like you see on the top to new, more like graphic novel graphics like you see on the bottom. So it should be more engaging. It'll have new craft type, like it'll have SUPs in it and pet crafts and things like that. And we're hoping that it'll be something that we can leverage on social media, and just really get a lot more out of, like kind of breathe new life into the safety code. We've always done accident tracking, thanks to Charlie Walbridge. We're investing in website like code and technology and really like a whole new main front website. And we're hoping to leverage that more to just tell better stories about accident prevention and risk factors, like this Sankey figure that you see here that was done by a volunteer. We think we can do more and do it better. And then, the last piece of this like kind of tech safety side is we've been consistently investing in the National Whitewater Inventory, which is our website. And their website has right now around 6,500 river reaches all across the country. There's photos and reach descriptions, and we're building this out for safety reasons, and we're also building it out for our work. Like when we go to advocate for a wild and scenic river or public access or the right to float, whatever it is, this is a really big deal to have photos, storytelling, people connected to rivers that we can point to on a map. And I know that there's a few people here on the call that work a lot on the whitewater inventory, so we can talk about it later, I'm sure. All right, so moving more into kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis, I'll talk about a few projects, most of which are new. The New River Dries is not that new. It's like maybe 5 years old now, but I wanted to highlight it as a regional example of flow restoration. And we were able to bring significant flows back to the New a few years ago. It was a bruising, torturous path. Excuse me. The state of West Virginia pushed back super hard. We had to appeal their water quality certificate. We kind of won that, but it was a compromise solution that we came out with. So this is an example. If you can go paddle the New now, it's the New River Dries. It's a beautiful stretch of river, as you can see. We've probably done this nationwide on between 100 and 200 river reaches where we brought water back. So. Excuse me. Yeah, so Savage River access, I'd ask for a show of hands, but I can't see you. But the Savage is a delightful river. It was one of my first rivers as I was coming up in Whitewater. The takeout came up for sale, and I was able to like find out about that early. I was able to like shop it around and try to find a public buyer. Ended up finding someone in our community that was willing to buy the land, use it for a business purpose, but also allow public access. So, excuse me, in the coming years, you'll see probably some improvements there and like making it more of a traditional public or a private access area. But it's just this like one of the kind of subtle roles that American Whitewater plays is we like to connect people with projects and kind of find the talents and power within our community to affect change. It's not even something we always really talk about. Like I haven't even shared that we did this. But it was very carefully orchestrated and really just comes down to the generosity of the boating community. Upper Yacht releases is a kind of a fun one. I worked maybe like 14 years ago to get the releases improved on the Upper Yacht. We got more Saturdays, earlier releases in the season. But just recently, some lakeside homeowners tried to get the permit changed through legislation, which is not the right way to change a river permit. You do it through the public process. And we were able to push back on that because it would have impacted spring releases in some years. And it also is just not how you play in a public space, on a public river. You don't flex political muscle to, excuse me, change a very carefully balanced permit like this. So we pushed back. We were able to reach out to paddlers in our member database at a very micro level. We could reach out to a single state legislative district. There might have only been 3 people that were AW members that were lived in that district. We could say, we could write them an email or call them and say, your legislator is in the district that matters on this committee. Can you please go talk to them about the Upper Yacht? And people did it and they rallied and it was super helpful. And we won. And now there'll be a public process, and that's great. And we'll totally play ball. And hopefully we can work something out where the Lakeside homeowners are happier. That's just better. Loop Trail, we did get funding from a private donor to fix the loop trail on the Lower Yacht. And the Ohio State Park, as you might imagine, they move slower than molasses. It's taken forever. There's been a gazebo that they've had to build. It's unbelievable. But anyway, they're going to do it. They're going to fix it this year. So hopefully in October of this year, there'll be just a significant improvement to the stairs of the loop, make it much easier to go up if you've got a raft or you've got a ducky or you just don't like walking up 3-foot tall steps. I've seen the designs. They look good. It's nothing crazy. It should be like in keeping with the area. And this is one that's super exciting. Many of you on this call or some of you on this call probably donated to this effort. For the Big Sandy, we were tracking pretty closely through volunteers, Charlie Walbridge especially, who's pictured here, that the Big Sandy Gorge was held by a private developer, and Dave Huff and Charlie worked with that developer to get an offer in on a chunk of land, and it was essentially all the river left. And we were able to raise funds from the paddling community like we've never raised before. We raised $400,000 and we bought all of river left. And it was so inspiring to work on. I love the Big Sandy personally, and I was just overwhelmed by the generosity and kind of the power of the paddling community to pull this off. And it was an honor to just do the paperwork, and like sign the contracts and negotiate all the language and all of that. And now we're working on transferring it to a land trust, the West Virginia Land Trust. That's going great. So they have it like under contract essentially. And we'll close that up by the end of this year, early next year. But it's really gotten us thinking about what else we can do at this scale, and has our organization kind of buzzing with ideas and ambition. 2 national pieces. So as I said, I'm going to DC tomorrow to do hill visits, and I'm going to be talking about a few things. One of them is Lowhead Dam legislation that we actually got passed in the last Congress that would basically require the Corps of Engineers to create an inventory of all the Lowhead dams in the country and put them on a map. And now we're tweaking that language in this Congress so that those dams will be eligible for Corps of Engineers funding to hopefully remove a whole bunch of them. So this has like a really big safety component, which makes it very bipartisan, easy to work on. We called Lindsey Graham, his office, and we said, we told them about this legislation, and they were like, we're in. Oh, sorry. Let's see. And he said, we're in. And we're like, what do you mean you're in? They're like, we're in. I don't know. What do you want? They're like, do you want us to sponsor it? And we're like, yeah. And they were like, okay, we're in. It's easy. These things are terrible. People die in them. We'll fix it. So really exciting. I think we'll have something fairly game-changing for Lowhead dams here in the next couple of years. And then I had to put a Packraft picture in. Here you go, Ed. This one's for you. This is a fork, one of the forks of the hump tulips in Washington State. There will be a public lands package this year. To be determined how big it is. There's going to be a markup in Congress on September 26th, and that's kind of hot off the presses. There'll be probably 40 river bills in it, or 40 bills, probably only 2 wild and scenic river bills, one in Montana, and then one in Oregon. But quite a few have already gone through markup, and they're all headed towards a year-end public lands package that will probably be attached to the NDAA, the Defense Authorization Bill. And this hasn't happened in a while. It's really exciting. We've been working on a lot of these bills for 10 to 14 years. So, I think we'll see new wild and scenic rivers, certainly on the Olympic Peninsula as kind of one of the top priorities, possibly the Gila in New Mexico, possibly, yeah, so Montana as well. Nothing in the east yet for us, but soon. Okay, just real quick, a couple challenges that remain. I didn't want to say that we're just awesome and everything's easy and it all goes really well. So as Ed knows, we've got some challenges that remain. Montgomery County parks, they don't allow paddling and we can't get them to, and we will get them to, but it's been very sticky. It's a very hard issue allowing paddling for small parks, municipal, county level parks. It's often just easier for them to say no. They usually don't understand paddling. They don't think it's part of their job. They just see it as hazardous. So part of what we try to do is just normalize paddling. We've done this in lots of parks and lots of different settings. But so far, working with Ed and Mac, who's also on today, we're making a run at it. We're going to keep making a run at it, but God, this issue is sticky. Um, and the other one that's kind of related is Harper's Ferry, where we've been working for years, kind of off and on. We'll do a push, we'll kind of hit a brick wall, and then we'll kind of give it a minute, and then there's a new superintendent or a new something, a new opportunity, and we'll push again. I worked on a river access plan there with the Park Service, highlighted a lot of opportunities um, to improve access in the Harpers Ferry area, but it's just a political quagmire there with like 3 states and I don't even know, like a bunch of counties, 3 national parks, a couple towns. Like it's just so, and the railroad, throw the railroad in there. So everybody points at everybody else and says it's their job to provide access. So this kind of highlights just that things are hard sometimes. And also like the national parks, a lot of times they are allow paddling and they're all about it. And sometimes like in this historical park, they just kind of think that's not really what they're there to do. Um, and national parks and state parks as well are kind of like fiefdoms. The superintendent has a lot of control. So those are a couple challenges. Almost done. I'll just talk about a couple trends I see, and then we can chat. Um, the first big trend I see right now is there's a lot of challenges to the right to float. There is a Supreme Court challenge in state Supreme Court in New Mexico on this that came out really favorable a couple of years ago. Colorado has perennial issues with the right to float. I'm currently involved in litigation in North Carolina over this issue, just the fundamental right to be on the water. And Georgia, most concerningly of all right now, Georgia's legislature is pretty seriously considering making a list of navigable rivers, probably that will be suitable for a 7-foot draft barge that's like 100 feet long and nothing else is navigable. Like Georgia's considering essentially an existential threat to boating. The reason most of these things or several of these things are happening is kind of curious and concerning. North Carolina and Georgia and New Mexico, really, they were basically trout fishing businesses that were either catered to or owned by very, very wealthy people that wanted exclusivity on rivers. And their approach is, they've got more money than God, so they'll use the court system or they'll use their legislative contacts and they'll try to essentially take what is public. And it's upon the public to push back. It's hard, because the public doesn't always add up to having as much power as a few very wealthy people, whether it's in court or in the legislature. It's a challenging issue. Right now we still live in a time where we can basically paddle almost any river in the whole country. And it's been that way as long as we can remember. And that could change. Like it takes a public who has the collective values that people should be able to share a river or share all rivers. And we've had that up till now, but you could see how that could change over time and how it could be eroded through pressure. So I'm facing that. I have a court hearing and a legislative hearing in two different states on Friday while I'm supposed to set up Gali Festival next week on this issue. So it's real. Next piece is clean water. The Clean Water Act, as some of you might know, the Supreme Court kind of rolled back some clean water protections, and it's kind of basically needs a legislative fix to fix the Clean Water Act to make it apply. The Supreme Court took away protections probably for around half of the waterways and wetlands in our country, more or less. Small streams, intermittent streams, so headwaters, lots and lots of desert rivers, and then lots of wetlands. And, I think without legislative action and without sort of a renewed public movement towards clean water like we had in the 70s, we could see a reversal in the trend that we've all experienced since the 70s of improving water quality. And I think that right now we'd probably be at peak clean water, and we'll start to see water quality falter in the coming years. So this is a picture from Glacier National Park on the left, and here in the southeast of the Millicheckie, right? Very different water quality experiences about a week apart. Dam removal is another trend. You're just going to see a lot more of it. There's a lot of money for it. And, most of the dams in the country are 60, 80, 100, 120 or more years old. So they're just aging. This is the Gila Dam on the Econolofty River here in North Carolina. It's going to come out hopefully in the next couple of years. But I think that like the last issue, I said, we'll see, maybe we're at peak clean water. We may be at peak dammed rivers right now, and that, the future generation will have more rivers to run because of big and small dam removals. And then lastly, we mentioned the Big Sandy. I think that there are these remaining large river corridors that have few owners, that are still forested, are still in a natural state, but they're privately owned. And those are starting to go away pretty quickly. And if we don't act, a lot of the kind of river corridors that we take for granted as, oh, they're just woods. They'll always be woods. It'll always be pretty. They might not be. So if we don't work to put some of these lands in conservation ownership and really steward them for future generations, they're going to be developed, and we'll lose some of them. And I think that there's opportunities in all these issues for the paddling community to really shine. And this is probably one of them, because we care about river corridors more than other people. That seems flippant to say, but I've tried to get land trusts to buy chunks of a river corridor, and it might just not score very high for them. And even the Big Sandy, like it was like difficult for the land trust community. They wanted it, but it was difficult for them to negotiate it. We had a little bit more flexibility because we're not a land trust. So for us, we could pay what it was worth to us, which is more than the appraised value. But in other cases, it just doesn't score high. It's not as ecologically important as it is important to us. So it's hard to get public funding and land trust funding for it. So last thing is just ways you can chip in for AW. First of all, we're a membership organization, so please join AW. It's $35 for the basic level, and then you can go up from there and give us more. But we love having your membership dollars. We love having the ability to send you a journal and keep in touch with you and like share our work with you through our magazine. You can also donate to us any amount. You can restrict donations or not. And you can put us in your will, which people are doing. And, you think about some of these lofty goals, like, could we be a land trust someday? And, buy river corridors, and could we have, a national right to float campaign? Like there's lots of things we could do with resources. And right now, some of the wills could really help us do that over time. We play the long game. A lot of my projects are 20 years. That's why I'm still here, is I'm still like seeing stuff come to fruition that I worked on. So the second thing is engage politically, and that could be, by all means, follow us on social media. When we say click on, send somebody a letter, please do it, because we don't do that just to like uh, engage people. We do it because we think it's going to be really important. We have so many more projects to work on than we have time for. So if we take the time to ask you and ask the paddling community to take action, it's because we think we can move the needle on something and like really affect change. So encourage you to take those things seriously. We're not just list building or whatever. And also just, developing relationships with your legislators at the state or federal level kind of all along, so that when you call them, it's not the first time you're calling them. Like, I think it's great if paddlers can just be like, hey, I'm your constituent, I'm a paddler. I'd love to talk to you about rivers. I'd love to take you on a river, even better. Um, so please do that. Engage politically, vote, of course. And then the last is contribute to our website, to the NWI. Anybody that's a registered user to our site, which is free, can add trip reports. You can edit river pages. We're totally overhauling our gauge system that should go live here in the next couple of weeks. Should make things a lot easier on that front. I'm sure Alf and others will be stoked to hear that. And we really use the people and photos and stories that are on our website to affect change with leaders in land management and political leaders. So that's a really easy way. And with that, I'll take questions and stop sharing my screen.
Hey, Kevin, this is Mary. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I'm driving, so I'm going to spitball a whole bunch of questions and then go back on mute. So hopefully, if you could ask me to pick up. But first of all, I was going to ask about Stream Team, and that's basically what I think you mentioned last about contributing to the website. There used to be such a thing as Stream Team. So how does one become a registered user to be able to update those rapid descriptions and add pictures, etc.? That would be one of my questions. Another question is there any succession planning for Charlie Walbridge? Because, when I see accident reports being reported online, I email Charlie directly, and I keep thinking I should be CCing somebody else at AW in addition to Charlie, just so that we have redundancy there. Let's see, another question was Lower Yacht Loop. I understand that you are pegging this for October. Hopefully you've got a unionized crew or whatever going to do that loop improvement, but they are shutting down access at the loop as of October 7th. So in the meantime, have you reached out to the railroad and tried to get access there? At the old Stewarton takeout, for instance. So I think that's the couple questions I had there for the short term. So
okay. All right, I can do that. All right. So to add things to our website, you don't need any fancy permissions anymore. You used to. There's certain things, like I think some of the gauge work, you still need permissions, but we'll probably work on that as we like roll out the new gauge service. For now, for most things on the website, just log in. Just go to the top right corner, click log in. That's your way to register. It's free. We just need an email. And then once you do that, you can add photos, you can add trip reports, you can edit descriptions, you can add rapids, add photos to rapids, all that kind of stuff. So that's easy. Succession for Charlie is something we've definitely thought a lot about. He's still stoked to be doing what he's doing. I think that my plan for that, we have people that are contributing accident reports that are helping us edit them and review them like Charlie does, and Charlie's kind of overseeing them a little bit. I think that the future is going to be a committee. It won't be a Charlie. Like, I don't expect to find another Charlie. So what we've talked about is a structure that AW can provide to receive and vet accident reports and then publish them to our website through like basically an accident committee. And we have names for that, but it's not in place right now. Your point's well taken. I would love for it to be in place with overlap with Charlie quite a bit because he has so much to teach us. And then loop takeout, I don't think the loop is closing in October, but the takeout for the lower Yacht is like all the way down because of the work they're doing down there. I've talked to the park about it. It seems legit. It seems like there's no other way than closing that road for a little while. They have to do it before the paving, during the paving season where they can still get gravel and like, it's just all, how roads are. You just got to do it when it's not snowing. So I've not talked about other access down there. So that's a good flag. I mean, I think it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks, largely unavoidable. Definitely would have the loop, might not have the lower. I'd actually have to dig in more to like where else you can take out on the lower, if it's something people would do. I know you can go down further. I just never have.
Yeah, so that there's the old Stewart to take out, but I am with the understanding that the railroad doesn't want you parking at their parking lot, and there's some consternation about whether or not you're allowed to cross the tracks, which is what was required even if you parked on the road. So I don't know if, in the interim that we can get a special dispensation for the railroad to be able to use their material storage at Stewarton. And then, if the loop takeout is going to be under construction, that's going to take away the one alternative paddlers have for taking out on the lower, unless they paddle an additional 11 miles down to Connellsville. So,
Right.
or I think there's a camp, it's not Camp Christian, it's the other camp, that was also suggested, but everybody said they would not be receptive to allowing paddlers to take out on their land. So we're really down to the old Stewarton takeout, negotiating with the railroad, or taking out of the loop, which we hope is not under construction for a whole long time. So we'd love to know if you have a date on that loop construction.
We don't. Yeah, no date yet. So that's a good flag that those two projects could overlap. And that would be bad. So I appreciate that. My experience negotiating with the railroad is that it's like you may as well just go stand and negotiate with the railroad tracks. But I don't know, maybe we could try. People can turn on their cameras too if you want. It'd be nice to not talk at a black screen. I'd love to see you again. If anybody wants, don't feel pressured, but hey, Mac.
Say, Kevin, I wonder if anybody from West Virginia Rivers Coalition has been in touch with you, because we're, in the 1990s, we tried to get legislation through for 13 rivers, mainly in the Cheat watershed and then down in what we call the fruit basket. But our timing was not very good because of the wise use movement was just blossoming then. And we got into a big spat with the West Virginia Department of Natural Resources, which thought that any federal say in how the rivers are managed might threaten their ability to manage fisheries, which was bogus. But anyway, there it was. Anyway, we're thinking of trying to start that again. And I just wonder whether anybody from West Virginia Rivers have been in touch with you. And then what's the outlook generally, do you think, for wild and scenic designations?
Yeah, great questions. Yes, I've been in touch with them. The Mon Headwaters is, kind of somewhat modeled after the Montana Headwaters Legacy Act, which I was part of creating that. And so I've, been consulted more like a consulting role, but clearly a stakeholder too. I know they're having a meeting in November is the next meeting. But yes, I'm in touch with those guys. I think it's a great idea. West Virginia is hard, obviously. It's hard to do things there.
Yes.
But, it still has purple political elements, and you never know. And you have to try, I think. I was in a meeting with David Brooks a few weeks ago, who's kind of the keeper of the Senate ENR committee, Energy and Natural Resources Committee, that is essentially the gatekeeper for Wild and Scenic. And he said Wild and Scenic is now as difficult as wilderness. And that was never the case. Like we had this period of time where Wild and Scenic is just different. It's not as prescriptive as wilderness. It's much more flexible. You can do a lot more in it, and people liked it, and it was bipartisan. And, now it's being maligned as the three W's: wilderness, wild and scenic, and withdrawals, which is mineral withdrawals, which is increasingly drawn. I guess you'd have to say conservative ire. So it's getting harder, is the answer to your question. And I don't think it's not impossible because we're doing it elsewhere, but it is challenging. And what I found is I read this quote that I keep thinking about for one of my other projects, which is it's so hard to build something and so easy to tear it down with misinformation. And that's what happens with wild and scenic rivers. It's not the reality of them that's a problem for people. It's the kind of things people say about them that they don't actually do. So
Right.
we should try.
Misinformation.
No, we should try real information.
Well, that's what the problem is. Missing.
I think so. I mean, yes, I think it's mostly misinformation, and it's like, yeah, probably like there's just a perspective that like the agency should be able to do whatever they want, because they can be politically pressured to do so, and that's a good thing. Anything that ties the agency's hands is bad to some people.
Hey,
Yeah.
Kevin, I'm David Cottingham.
Yeah, so nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I appreciate all the work you did I got two questions. One, all the Harper's Ferry work you did. We have at CCA been able to work out some with the private landowners, with the outfitters who own the land where we want to put in and take out for weekday paddling. And so, we've got arrangements with them. We can park cars, pay them $10, whatever.
Yeah.
But we really haven't been able to break through and get much on weekends when the outfitters are so busy. Have you been in touch with any of the folks up there in Harper's Ferry or the CNO recently? I have not. And
I have not. No,
okay.
it's been a year, maybe 6 months or a year. I think a while ago there was like whenever an issue comes up, I try to like reach out and open up more
Right.
dialogue. But I've not met with the superintendent, the current superintendent. I don't
Right.
believe.
Well, you got both Harper's Ferry and CNO and Appalachian Trail and Potomac River and all that. My other totally unrelated to this area question is I grew up in South Carolina and paddling on the Chattooga. And I hear there's a move to take out, I forget the name of the dam.
Tugaloo.
Huh?
Tugaloo.
Tugaloo. It's Section 4. Yeah. At the end of Section 4. You got any prognosis? Are they making any progress on that?
I think it's personal, professional perspective. I think Tugaloo is a moonshot. Tugaloo is a dam. What I've seen is some dams are getting more valuable and some are getting less valuable. And as like energy markets and climate and everything's changing. Dams like the Millville Dam on the Shenandoah are like upside down. They're pieces of crap. They're losing money. They should go away, right? They're bleeding money and they're only there. And they have a huge physical footprint, a huge environmental footprint for very little, very bad, like lame power. It's like base load crap power. It's not worth much. Tugaloo is a big dam, relatively big, a lot of storage, and it releases straight into another reservoir. So they can do whatever they want with flows and just peak the heck out of it, make tons of money, pair it with other renewables, really well.
Yeah.
It's one of those dams that makes sense in the future. And Georgia Power is investing hundreds of millions of dollars right now into retooling it. I think it's here to stay for a while.
All right. I got some buddies who are working on it, and I had to ask you.
I've told them that too, and I've worked on it. I've worked on it with them because I still think it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah.
I've just always viewed it as a bit of a moonshot, but I'm also not afraid of an occasional moonshot. You know, like if
I think there's a pretty good gradient there.
oh,
in that 4 miles. I forget what the number is, but it's a heck of a gradient.
well, and you get the Tallulah because it dams up the bottom part of the Tallulah, so it would be a whole nother like class 3 run at the bottom of the Tallulah, which would be pretty sweet.
Yeah. Thanks for doing all you're doing.
Oh yeah, nice to meet you. Finally, we've worked together,
That,
emailed you for many, many years. So
my last question, since nobody else is doing it, I saw some people from NOAA recently, and I understand that NOAA, which means National Marine Fisheries Service, got a big chunks of money for dam removals, and they're under the auspices of fish passage.
mhm.
Are you tapping into some of that and working with those folks pretty closely?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and bipartisan infrastructure law,
Right.
funding. Yeah, we're absolutely like we're pushing our priorities up through the administration for which dam removals we like. And then also yeah, trying to line that up. We are in an interesting place where we've negotiated a bunch of dam removals, but we're
Right.
not typically the one that like gets the money, like contracts the work. Like American Rivers actually does a great job of that. Like that's one of their core competencies, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
But we like to like find the opportunities and line it up and advocate for it and like get the FERC order, the legal order. And then, the funding is not something we're as involved in.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Mhm. Any other questions?
I had a question regarding Montgomery County and stream restoration. I don't
Mm.
know if you're familiar with, it's much smaller level of stream, but the restoration in this case is for the stream near my house is that um, the stream tends to flood, and it's an S-shaped, many little bends, and they channelized it into a relatively straight channel with many
Mm.
little dams. And the channels are designed so that if there's a heavy rain, the water will flood out somewhat and settle in so that the amount of sediment might be lower. And the project was carried out about 3 or 4 years ago, but I was wondering at a level of that you might be familiar with other jurisdictions, whether this type of stream restoration, I asked them whether they were going to do any studies afterwards to see about the before and after, and they said, no, this is an engineer, this design has been tested and whatever. But I wondered if it's a topic of conversation.
So are they taking the straight stream and making it meandered or the opposite?
No, it's a meandering stream that they straighten out. And the whole stream, the channel has been modified. They bring bulldozers in and
Yeah.
issues regarding the vegetation and trees, but
Well, that's not restoration work. Restoration work is taking straight ditch streams with dams in them and taking the dams out and making them meander. So they're doing the opposite typically of what is like restoration.
yes,
Um,
that word usage has been pointed out to them, but I think
yeah,
it's still in use.
well, it's a nice word. It's a friendly word if you can use it, but it's not accurate in that case. So it sounds like an engineered solution to stormwater and essentially, using the creek, designing the creek into a stormwater conveyance system rather than a creek, which is pretty sad. It may work from a, engineering like
I mean,
stormwater.
they do hope to get the water to infiltrate so that the runoff is less, but just looking at the turbidity, I find that they're equal or that the channelized has a higher level of turbidity.
I'd say yikes on that one. I mean, I guess with stormwater runoff in the environment you're in, you think about like the BMPs that you see below a big parking lot. It sounds like they're doing that, in a natural stream bed, try to like get it to infiltrate and settle out sediment. It sounds morbidly inappropriate for a natural stream, but I don't know, maybe they're dealing with such severe impacts from impermeable surfaces like roads and roofs that they are taking some sort of extreme Los Angeles style approach. I mean, even Los Angeles, they're trying to bring the river back that they ditched. It seems
Oh,
backwards.
really? That's interesting.
Let me interject. In the chat, if you go to the chat, there's somebody by name of Sarah. She gave her email and she said, contact me about stream restoration. And that might be productive. So it's Sarah at omgym.com. But if you just click on the chat box, you'll see her information.
That's the kind of work I was supposed to do with my degree, and then I got this job, which is weird and not what I was supposed to do, and I love it anyway. But I have a master's degree in stream restoration and undergrad as well. So I still love it. It's still fascinating to me. So it's really interesting to hear what you're saying.
Ah, ah.
That wasn't a comment. So one observation I made about your stream corridors, Kevin, in my paddling out west in Idaho and Montana, I was appalled. Stream after stream is residential now. It's one ranchette after another. The Madison River, the Big Hole. Um, I don't know what's left, except maybe in the extreme headwaters.
Yeah. I mean, and here it's, places like Section 9 of the French Broad that is what comes to my mind is I just always thought that was Forest Service. And I hear that all the time. Well, I always just thought that was Forest Service. And it's not. It's almost all private property. And River right now is these huge multi-million-dollar homes, and River left is like just timberland, so it'll go that way too. Um, so yeah, it's an issue. I mean, I think we're kind of the last generation that can get in front of it, honestly. Like kind of the next 20 years is probably going to be the time to do it.
I also want to comment, uh, North Georgia has been totally trashed that way for a long
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
virtually every stream. And I was challenged, by the way, on the Upper Chattahoochee several years ago at Helen, where I was paddling through somebody's trout reserve.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. So that stream in Helen has a mean annual flow of like 106 CFS. And the Georgia legislature, one of the things they're thinking about is doing a 400 CFS limit for navigability. So it'd have to be 4 times bigger than the river through Helen to be even potentially navigable. Virginia has a 5 CFS mean annual flow standard for their permitting authority, which has been used towards navigability as well. So Georgia's kind of wackadoodle right now. It's scary. They might really end boating there. It would, maybe they won't, but they're certainly toying with the idea, more than toying. And it's like the Coca-Cola family.
Yes.
Like the people that are really driving this are like very, very, very ultra wealthy fishing reserves. Same in North Carolina, where, they stock fish, they feed fish, they medicate the fish, they dig holes in the stream bed to like hold the fish, and then they sell a product, or they like to go there and have their clubs and have their um high-end real estate development that's based around fishing, and it's pretty icky. So um it's,
Oh,
it's a,
speaking of this, it used to be on the AW website, and maybe it's still there. I couldn't find it. You used to have a state-by-state recap of
Mhm.
navigation laws. Is that still there?
Oh yeah, no, we bury stuff real good on the website, but it never goes away. Yeah, it's still there right now. If you go under our organization and then stewardship, look on the right, there's like a bunch of tools, and go to the bottom to like um access or something like that. It's down there. It's like
Okay.
8 levels deep.
Okay.
And we actually just had it redone. So this is a state by state analysis of navigability and kind of public rights. We just had a law firm called Morgan Lewis take another look at it a couple years ago and refresh it with all the new information.
Oh, good.
They did that for free. It's super awesome to have pro bono legal help.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Wait, I think I see a new message. Kevin, thanks for your talk tonight. Very informative. Okay. You must have been very thorough because I expected more questions here.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, this is Mary again. Okay, I gotta try to remember now. Is there a way we can unbury some of that great information on the AW website? And one of the things that still gets me, I guess I'm old school, but I really miss easy links to the state rivers list. I have them saved, bookmarked, so I could get them quickly. But if I'm going to a new state like Colorado or Arizona or something, I fuss and it takes me forever to try to find that state rivers list to find out what's flowing. So I know you all went to the map sort of version, and I would love for there to be some way to, gee, if I'm at a certain map level, or I have a certain region appearing on my map, can I get the rivers list that is shown on that map? Or, like I said, just take me back to the old school rivers list by state would be helpful. They're there, but they're buried. So is there a way to do that by region, or can we unbury the state stuff?
Yes, I can tell you where the state lists are buried. They're directly below the map. So when you go to river info on the American Whitewater website and you scroll down, you'll see all of the state lists and you can click on them and they're still there. We actually just left the old code in place. So they are there just like they were before. We just put a map on top of it, but you have to scroll down to see it.
Okay. I'll have to take a look at it. I wonder if we could invert that, but thank you.
Yeah, we knew that there were people that weren't spatial, which in the South, spatial means something different. It just means you're special. But there's people that didn't like maps as much as they like lists. And there's just two different ways of seeing the world, So it actually was a huge pain. But when we went to the new mapping service, we just left all the old lists right below it. So you can still click on Colorado and see all the Colorado rivers or wherever. We're also redoing our apps. So hopefully soon we'll have new apps. We have a volunteer working on it, so we can't really control the timeline, but progress is good. If our current maps actually work pretty well, but we can do better. They're out of date now, so that'll be another service we'll be able to offer pretty soon.
Well, last call for questions.
Well, I think he needs a really good applause.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Just been
That's a shortcoming of Zoom is you can't get a real applause.
Oh.
Well, Barb calling for it means a lot. So
well, we really appreciate this. I just can't emphasize enough how we need to showcase what you all do because it's helping us.
well,
when you show how big it is, it's just mind-boggling.
Kevin, I would also add, when you come up, I mean, I know you were talking about your coming to Washington for the Outdoor Alliance and things like that. I know you got lots of contacts in Washington. Many of us, including, I don't know how many DC residents are on here. I don't see any DC residents. I mean, obviously, I don't have a member of Congress. Grace doesn't have a member of Congress, but we can run around up there pretty easily. I mean, it's a pretty easy metro ride to get down there if you need bodies to go out and help with things like this. So we can announce it. Put it on the canoe cruisers websites and stuff like that. If you're looking for bodies and to support people from out of town and stuff like that.
I would love that. And you know, the canoe cruisers is a lot, you have a lot more than just bodies. You've got a lot of like really sharp, you know, connected people in your club that already have a lot of these existing relationships with lawmakers and their staff that like we can't have from afar.
Yeah.
And just, you know, like Grace came and went on the hill with me. And like it was the first time she'd ever like run around the hill, and she was like immediately better at it than I was because she just like is immersed in the DC scene. Like she like knows how to dress. I don't. She like knows, you know, like move through the subway system. I don't. Like it was just really cool to see you know, how good you all are, like Grace too, but I've seen others of you.
I
Just,
bet Mac would even put on a tie.
is that true? If that's true, I'm in. Let's do it. No, I really do think there's an incredible political opportunity in your club, and you guys take advantage of it. But man, we are trying to do a lot, and it would be really helpful if we could reach out to you guys more. And
We'd be happy to help any way we can.
cool. That's a really good kind of flag for me.
Yeah.
And you always have a crash pad at Barb Brown's.
You know, when I got hired by American Whitewater, I needed a place to live while I trained in the Silver Spring office. And I called up Barb and I said, Barb, can I live in your house for like some undetermined amount of time, like maybe 6 weeks? And she's like, sure, come on over.
Yeah.
So I've already done that, but I would do it again, sure.
Thanks much, Mac. I mean, Kevin.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for the opportunity, everybody.
Right.
Right.
Fun.
Yes, thank you so
Safe
much.
traveling.
Thank you
Yeah.
for coming.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
I'm going to end the recording now.
Okay.